Welcome into Power Plays presented by Bet365. I'm Tim Kalinowski, joined by my co-hosts over at Line Change, Action Network's NHL betting podcast. That's Michael Leboff and Nick Martin. What we do here, because our podcast is Tuesday through Thursday, we give you some bets for Saturday's slate, and it's a loaded Saturday slate, 13 games, playoff implications, seeding on the line here. So it should be a great full day of hockey. We do it draft style. It's time for me to go first, followed up by Mike and Nick. And again, thank you to our friends over at Bet365. That's who we're using here for the lines. I'll get us started, fellas. I'm going to go with the Avalanche minus 162 versus Winnipeg, or that's what I like it too. Listen, this is been an impressive little run here for Winnipeg, this road trip, but I do think it's tough when the fourth leg of your road trip is at Colorado. They've won at Mini, at Nashville, at Dallas, and now at Colorado. Colorado, we know it's one of the toughest home ice advantages in the league. They're also going to get Mikko Rantanen back. It sounds like he was a full participant in Friday's practice. So I think that's a big bump for them and also helps to get other guys going like Nick Chushkin. So for me, the home ice, the travel, Rantanen back, plus I have them just power rated better than Winnipeg. I get to minus 162 here on the Avalanche. I'll send it over to you, Leboff, for your seal of approval on my pick.
Yeah, for this one, I think I'm going to pass. I do like the way Winnipeg's going. I think that they always are a tough team to bet against in these kind of spots. And the Avalanche are a better team, but the Jets just punch up so well in against good teams. I would say, and the goaltending situation in Winnipeg's been so good all season long. So I do think that Colorado's a little bit better. You I guess bake into home ice, and I can see how you're getting there. I'm not going to bet Winnipeg, but I'm going to pass here and root for the Avs. I do think that they are still dangerous, and perhaps right up there with Edmonton and Dallas is the best teams in the West.
That's fair enough. And, also Winnipeg is up 2-0 in the season series on the Avalanche here. So certainly a case to be made there. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I lean with the Avs like you, but I think the number looks more or less fair to me. It's definitely a really interesting game I mean, this could decide home ice for when these teams meet in the playoffs, right? So,
Mhm.
pretty interesting preview matchup. But to me, it does look fair. Like Mike said, the Hellebuck factor looks pretty massive, but I do think we should see the Avs own a good amount of the play. So I'm not like off it with you, but I feel like it's a bit of a scary number. Avs goaltending situation is a little bit more of a question mark. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how the playoff preview shakes out, but didn't see a ton of betting value.
All right, cold feet from you guys, and I can't blame you because I'm the guy that ruined our chances at a sweep last week. We went 2-1, Leboff with the big pick on the San Jose Sharks. So again, yeah, I don't blame you guys. I'm the loser who ruined it. But Mike, it is time for your pick, number 2 overall. Who you going with?
I'm gonna go with the Detroit Red Wings here at anything better than plus 145. They are in Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. I think that Detroit, people are sort of writing them off like their season's over after an overtime loss against the Penguins. I don't think that's the case. I actually think that they should be a little bit more buoyant than people are giving them credit for. Getting a huge point out of that game to stay within one of Pittsburgh, the Penguins, Capitals, Red Wings. Flyers are all within 86. Well, Penguins on 86 points going into the weekend. Then those other three teams on 85, and they all have pretty tough matchups on this weekend, including the Red Wings, who are big underdog in Toronto. But they are totally still in this thing and should, I think, still be able to carry some momentum. They've been playing much better as a unit for the past couple weeks, and I think that they could catch a good spot here against the Maple Leafs, who are, I don't want to say that like they're just playing out the string, but they are being a lot more careful with players. Max Domi is now questionable. I think that there's definitely a chance that we start to see the Maple Leafs try to maybe shut it down here with a couple games left in their spot, all but secured there in the number 3 seed. So I'm not saying that that they're professional athletes. They're not just going to lay down here, but I think with that, that's how I get to this number, and the Red Wings should be pesky here. So I'm going to go with Detroit here as an underdog.
And as time is a flat circle, once again, the Leafs, the goaltending, it might be a little bit of a head scratcher as Samsonov didn't have a great night against New Jersey on Thursday. So I can see where you're going there, Leboff. Nick, do you have more approval of Leboff's pick than you did on mine?
I don't mind it. I do think that the Leafs are going to bring a really sharp effort. They've been playing out the stretch quite well, and they're going back to Samsonov. And I think if you're anybody in that room, knowing how Samsonov thinks, and I know we don't want to go too far down these angles, but I think everyone on that team knows they need to get Sammy right, and that the absolute last thing they want to see is him to get shelled on Saturday. But I also think that does make a bit of a case to Detroit because Detroit has some pretty legitimate offensive upside. And I think Samsonov, as a Caps fan who's watched him his entire career, is still a pretty mentally weak player. So I think when you're getting this kind of a number, and I don't want to pick on the guy, but I think when you're getting this kind of a number on Detroit with their offensive upside, I'm not going to argue against that. I don't necessarily agree that I think Toronto's going to let down at all. I think they're going to play out the stretch well here. But it is Samsonov's a big question mark right now. So yeah, it's really interesting on that front because this will probably be his second last start of the year. And I still think he'll be viewed as the game one starter. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how he bounces back after what was a really shaky performance versus New Jersey.
Yeah, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're rooting for Sammy, and obviously being a goalie in Toronto is no easy deal, and the guy's incredibly hard on himself. So, but hey, this is betting, and you got to look for angles everywhere, and he definitely had a tough performance last time out. And Nick, before we go to you as our closer here, I got to let you know that Power Plays is presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Each day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and now North Carolina. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. T's and C's and restrictions apply. All right, coming out of the bullpen, Nick, finish us off here.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins money line. I think that this number looks a little too short to me. It feels like Pittsburgh's getting a lot of credit for their recent push and the fact that I mean, I fully get it. This is not quite a do or die spot, but it's pretty huge. They will continue to control their own destiny if they win. But with that said, minus 130, minus 135, is that the number we'd be looking at if these teams were facing off in game one of the playoffs right now? I don't think it is. I still think that Boston has some pretty legit edges over Pittsburgh. I think that Boston's getting slept on a little bit right now. I still love their defensive upside, excellent goaltending, great blue line. We've heard all this talk about their flaws down the middle, but Zach and Coyle haven't been that bad. And I still think that they can really expose the Penguins. And you look at the Penguins, great win over Detroit, but I still think there's a lot of flaws to nitpick. It's been surprising that Nedeljkovic has been on this kind of a run, and I don't know if that's going to hold, while I still love what the Bruins have. And as much as the spot kind of favors Pittsburgh in some ways, if you're going to think like strictly motivationally, it is a really good tune-up game for the Bruins who want to head into the playoffs in top form. They've got all their guys in for this game. So for me, I think the number looks a little short. I think the Penguins are getting a lot of credit. We've seen that, and the Pens are the one team that's playing good right now out of the wild card race. But it feels like at this point we just know all those teams are lesser teams, and you'd actually be doing pretty well to fade any of them except for specifically Pittsburgh. But I do think that this is the time to sell high on the Penguins. It feels like they're priced pretty evenly with the Bruins team that I still really like. So I'm gonna go with the Bruins finding a way to steal one in Pittsburgh on the road and kind of play the role of spoiler while tuning up for their own playoff run.
Yeah, and Leboff, notice how Nick didn't mention the Islanders in playing well in the wild card race because they're not in it. They're in the Metro race. How do you feel about Nick's pick here on the Bruins?
Yeah, I'm right there with him. I had a feeling that one of you guys were going to pick this, and I like the Red Wings as my favorite overall bet. So I had a feeling we'd be discussing this. I think that this is a really good time to go against the Penguins, and I think a lot of the same reasons I said about Detroit kind of apply here, which is it does feel like everyone's kind of crowned the Penguins as the team that's going to just kind of walk away with this wild card 2 spot. Feel like that's now seeping into the market a little bit, that everyone is maybe overrating them a bit. They are going really well. They're obviously getting some really great contributions from the top of the lineup. Nedeljkovic was really good in goal for them until that Red Wings game. So a lot of things have just been breaking right for Pittsburgh. We talked all season long about how this team was better than its actual overall record, and it looked like at some point you'd expect something to course correct, and it just did. And I think that now we're starting to see what, if you look at their record, this is probably the type of team the Penguins are. And to your point, Tim, I think if you threw Detroit in this matchup, or if you threw even the Islanders in this matchup, I think we'd be looking at a little bit of a maybe the Islanders not so much just because they're also on a hot streak, but like, Detroit, for example, I think that you'd be seeing a little bit of a disparity in the odds here. So I think that Boston looks a good price here at -135.
Yeah, and this is why I love these conversations, because I came in here a little hesitant on this game, but you guys have convinced me. I'm excited to take all three of these plays. Once again, I was on Colorado over Winnipeg. Nick is on the Bruins over Pittsburgh, and Leboff is on the Red Wings over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Another great Saturday in the NHL. Power Plays is presented by Bet365 once again, and we will see you guys next week back for another week of Line Change. Enjoy the games, everyone.